Okay, great. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is the second session in our series of talks that we're going to be running in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Ottawa Integrative Cancer Centre and the first anniversary of the Centre for Health Innovation, which is the new name for the clinic. Dr. Caitlyn Keates is going to be giving our second talk. Winter is coming. Ways to beat the seasonal blues. And Dr. Keates has joined the clinic as one of the naturopathic doctors, has graduated from the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, has done some extra sort of focused care in terms of cancer at the Integrative Cancer shift at the college in Toronto. And it's just been a superb clinician to join us, and has already given other talks as well. So this is not her first, but I think this one is really topical for the season, and I hope that everyone gets something out of this session. And there will be opportunity for questions at the end. We won't record the questions, or we'll edit those out. It's typically what we've done in the past. Feel free to speak up at that point, and you can either add questions into the chat as we go through, and that way Dr. Keates can review them. Either, if it feels like immediately she can address it, or she may want to wait until the very end. It'll be go that way. But I think better than trying to sort of jump in and interrupt, just put in a question in the chat. And then that way you'll be able to make note of it as we go through too, and keep track of it. So all right, well, without further ado, I'm gonna take myself off video, and if anyone else would like to do the same, you can. It's up to you, and just ask you to keep on mute until the end. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Caitlyn. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me tonight and for celebrating the 1 year and 10-year anniversary of the clinic. It's almost my 1 year anniversary since joining the clinic. So it's a great time of reflection right now, and a great time for us to kind of focus on what is the seasonal blues, which I'm sure all of you are exposed to, and that's why you're here tonight. And it's definitely something that's pretty prevalent as we've spent the last almost 2 years now in isolation. So going into hopefully not another lockdown, but we'll see. So the title is Winter is Coming, because we at the Chi, we love Game of Thrones, or at least myself and Dr. Seeley do. But winter is here, and we're going to talk about some of the ways to beat the seasonal blues. So just a guided overview here. We're going to be starting with a bit of a short meditation, and then we'll go into what is seasonal affective disorder versus seasonal blues. Some ways to bring the light in that might include supplements or some app recommendations, and then we'll talk about mental health and gut health and how that might affect mental health. Some ways to spice up your life, so a little bit of a nutrition talk there, and then skincare, how that will affect gut health and, again, mental health, and then just a brief overview of some aroma therapies that I enjoy using to bring some joy to my life, and maybe you can as well. So to start, I'm going to bring up a nice guided meditation here. We're just going to go through it slowly, so get yourself comfortable. I invite you to take a deep breath, and when you're comfortable, begin to close your eyes. I wonder if you would take a moment to imagine yourself being more calm, peaceful, and focused. And as you allow your unconscious mind to naturally conjure an image of what would feel like, consider what you might be seeing, what you might be hearing, and what you might be feeling. That shows you a more calm, peaceful, and focused environment. And perhaps you're already feeling more calm and peaceful and focused right now. And if not, notice that your unconscious mind can reveal how you might do this. Now, maybe you can think of a simple way to incorporate this feeling of calm into your life in the days and the weeks leading ahead. And after you have done that, know that it really can be this easy to create a little more peace and calm in your life. So I invite you now to take a deep breath for a moment and begin to move your attention back to our presentation, listening to some of the sounds that surround you, and begin to open your eyes. So this was just a very, very short meditation, just 1 minute long. And meditation is an easy way for us to kind of reframe our thought and kind of enter into a relaxation state throughout the day when we're starting to feel overwhelmed or stressed or anxious. And it's a way that I like to control my thoughts whenever I'm feeling maybe some of those seasonal blues come in. It's something easy for us to incorporate. So these are a few of the meditation apps that I typically recommend to my patients. There's so many out there that are available to us right now. You can do many intro courses to kind of feel fit and see what works best for you. Insight Timer is my favorite, my personal favorite. I use a lot of it, free content on there. Headspace used to be on Netflix, but I do know that it is an app as well. So take note of these and use them whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious in the coming weeks as we enter into the holiday season, and whenever you feel those seasonal blues or seasonal affective disorder come on. So let's talk a little bit about what are the seasonal blues, or what is seasonal affective disorder. And I'll start on the right-hand side here with winter blues. This is a sadness during the winter months. So we might feel a lack of motivation to complete tasks, but we can still handle our major tasks like going to work or cleaning our house, taking care of our kids, cooking dinner. We might notice we have some trouble sleeping, or we want to spend about 1 to 2 days in bed here and there, but nothing too severe. The next, or on the contrary, is seasonal affective disorder, which is very similar, but it's definitely something that can be more severe. And it's been given a DSM-5 criteria, which means it's actual diagnostic criteria that says you have seasonal affective disorder and you should seek treatment for it. So we might see things like overeating, some craving of carbohydrates, difficulty sleeping, depressed mood for most of the day and nearly every day. That's a big criteria there. Loss of interest in activities that we typically enjoy, some withdrawal and isolation from loved ones, inability to focus or concentrate on work performance and household tasks. So we're not able to focus here at all, whereas we were in the winter blues. Lethargy or fatigue, hopelessness, or perhaps some suicidal thoughts. So that's just the difference between the two. Majority of us fall under these winter blue criteria during the winter months, but it definitely can get severe enough to get into the seasonal affective disorder criteria. So keep an eye out. So some statistics here, it's 4 times more common in women than men for seasonal affective disorder is what we're talking about. And the acronym for it is SAD, which is kind of you might see it posted here and there in the text. That's just what I'm referring to is that acronym. It affects approximately 10 million Americans per year, but about 2 to 3% of Canadians experience SAD in their lifetime, and 15% will experience a milder form. The age of onset's between 18 to 30 years of age, and incidence decreases with age, and 6% of those diagnosed require hospitalization. So it is a serious condition that is very different from the winter blues. So we often think of vitamin D as being a trigger for the winter blues or seasonal affective disorder because we're not experiencing as much vitamin D exposure, sun exposure that we were in the summer months. So a reminder that vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. It's actually a hormone as well. And it is depleted during those winter months. So it is one of the reasons why we do experience these shift in mood or in behavioral patterns there. They did a 2013 Health Canada survey. It's kind of dated now, so these numbers are probably a little bit more elevated now, 2021, almost 2022. But they found that 32% of Canadians had insufficient vitamin D levels, which is why when either myself as a naturopathic doctor or your medical doctor requisitions blood work to test vitamin D, we automatically assume that everyone is pretty much going to be deficient in vitamin D, and the cost of a vitamin D test, regardless of who's requisitioning it, the patient will have to pay. So 10% of Canadians are deficient. Canadians aged 20 to 39 had the lowest rates of sufficient vitamin D levels, which is interesting because on the previous slide, we talked about how majority, that age of onset was between 18 to 30 years of age. So kind of an interesting correlation there. 34% of Canadians took a supplement containing vitamin D, and Canadians who took supplements containing vitamin D were above the cutoff compared to those who did not. More Canadians were below the vitamin D cutoff in winter compared to summer, and individuals who are overweight or obese tend to have lower vitamin D levels. So one of the ways that we bring the sunshine in is by supplementing with vitamin D. We'll return to this slide in a minute. But we're just going to talk briefly about our circadian rhythm, which is another important dynamic to our seasonal blues and to seasonal affective disorder as well. So the circadian rhythm is our body's internal biological clock. So it consists of 3 hormones: serotonin, vitamin D, and melatonin. Serotonin is the hormone that is triggered when we're stimulated by light, so in the morning, and it has a large role in mood regulation. So when we are diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder, they may offer you an SSRI or a serotonin reuptake inhibitor as a treatment option for improving your mood. Vitamin D is involved in the regulation of serotonin, so that's why I discussed it in the previous slide. And melatonin is produced when it's dark out. So that's why now that it's getting dark around 3, 4 p.m., we start to get tired earlier. We start to want to go to bed around 6, 7 p.m. because we're starting to produce melatonin a bit earlier than we were in the summer months. It's a sleep hormone released by the pineal gland, and it's important in the regulation of our circadian rhythm. So when we go to bed and when we wake up in the morning. So some ways to bring the sunshine in would, of course, be with vitamin D. So the recommended daily intake is around 1,000 IUs. And it's important to test vitamin D because not everyone requires to supplement with it. And it is fat soluble, so it will accumulate in the body, and it can lead to some side effects like hypercalcemia or maybe some kidney stone accumulation or things like that. So it's important for us to know as practitioners and you to know as patients what your baseline vitamin D status is so that we can supplement it accordingly based on how much you need. It is usually available in a liquid-based supplement, so it's important to give the bottle a good shake before you consume it because it's an oil at the top usually, and vitamin D is fairly heavy, so it'll fall to the bottom. And we need food for it to be absorbed because it's fat soluble. So some tips there with vitamin D supplementation. And then melatonin, we talked about it earlier, about 1 to 10 milligram dosages are available. Some side effects to that are some vivid dreams or grogginess in the morning. So it's important, again, for us to be, for you as patients to be monitored while you're taking it so that we can dosage you appropriately. And if you're taking anything else for sleep, we want to just make sure that there's no interactions. These are hormones and we need to be monitoring them throughout your body there. Some other ways, we have dawn stimulators. So these are pretty cool because they're a much nicer alarm clock. You don't get that annoying beeping in the morning. They gradually increase the strength of light over a 30 to 60 minute duration in the morning to stimulate that the sun is rising, and increases our serotonin so that we wake up in the morning. A light box is another way that we can mimic some outdoor lighting by emitting some UV rays. When we purchase them, just some purchasing notes, you want to get something that has about 10,000 lux of light and emits as little UV light as possible. We don't want to be going into a tanning bed here while we're sitting in front of our light box. But we use it within the first hour of waking in the morning for about 20 to 30 minutes, and keep it about 16 to 24 inches from your face, and don't look directly in the light. Some common usage strategies there that I'm sure you're all aware of. But these have been researched to be effective in reducing seasonal blues as well as seasonal affective disorders. So they've looked at them in research for both and have shown to have some advantages there. Now we move on to mental health, which is probably the biggest hitter here when it comes to seasonal blues or seasonal affective disorder. And some of the treatments there are with cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is a form of talk therapy, and they have adapted it for seasonal affective disorder in general. So it's about 2 weekly group sessions for 6 weeks duration. And cognitive behavioral therapy is really great at reframing your thought. So it replaces the negative thoughts associated with the winter season with more positive thought, or they use some behavioral activation. So they'll identify some of those triggers that are causing those types of negative self-thought, and they'll make you actually go and do them so that you adapt to those experiences and you learn to enjoy them, or you create more engaging type behaviors. Now, they've compared these to the light box therapy and the stimulators, and they've found that the effects are pretty comparable when it comes to treating symptoms, but the effects of the cognitive behavioral therapy, they last longer than the light therapy. The other way to control mental health is spending time with others. I know right now we're not encouraged to do that. So even just scheduling Zoom meetings or coming on to these webinars and spending some time with us, or giving a friend a call, or a virtual coffee date or something like that, so that you are interacting with other people and not isolating yourselves as much, is very important for our mental health. We are social creatures. We need to spend some time with each other, whether it's virtually or in person. So these are some mental health resources that I've just jotted down for you all if you wanted to take some notes. CAMH is an excellent resource. They always have so many programs on there that you can explore through, or so many resources that you can access health professionals or anything of that source when it comes to mental health. Connects is an app that has been developed by the Government of Canada. And you can have access to healthcare professionals and psychotherapists and things like that through the app. Wellness Together is when you go on the website, it's also another Canadian government website. They have an opportunity for you to learn, for you to practice, for you to connect, and for you to track your progress. So it's kind of a nice guided program that they've created there throughout that one. Mind Shift is another one developed through Anxiety Canada, so another Canadian resource for you. It's a free resource, and this is an actual cognitive behavioral therapy app. So you can go on there and you can connect with psychotherapists and people who specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy, and they'll be able to guide you through some of the challenges that you're facing right now with your seasonal blues or a seasonal affective disorder. And this is just a resource that I found when I was putting together the presentation, and it has 79 other resources for managing seasonal affective disorder, from recipes you can try to activities you can do to physicians you can connect with to blog posts. And it's a really neat little resource of everything all together there. So now we're going to move forward and talk about gut health. So whenever a patient comes in and they have anything to do with mental health, I always take a look at the gut. We have a direct connection through the vagus nerve from our brain to our stomachs. And the vagus nerve is involved in motility, it's involved in digestion, it's involved in appetite. It moves food through the digestive tract, it stimulates digestive enzymes whenever we eat to help break down our food, and it tells us when we're full and when we're hungry. So I'm sure if all of you have ever had they had to use the washroom more frequently before a presentation or before an exam, or whenever you're really stressed out at work and you start to feel nauseous, or you don't feel like eating, or you feel like eating a lot, that's because our anxieties or our mental health is triggering a gut reaction through that vagus nerve. Vice versa as well. So whenever we have any gut-related condition that's causing a dysbiosis or any inflammation in the gut, it can lead to anxiety or any sort of mental health-related concerns. So our gut bacteria is really important, and it's the breakdown of food into metabolites is detected by our vagus nerve. So I always preach a good probiotic or a good prebiotic, or consuming probiotic and prebiotic type foods to help keep our gut bacteria very diverse, to prevent dysbiosis and to prevent inflammation from happening. Now, our gut bacteria is also really important for two neurotransmitters, GABA and serotonin. So these are two really important neurotransmitters at improving our mood. So when we have some good bacteria in our gut, oftentimes when we look at the gut and help heal the gut, we see a lot less mental health concerns or reduction in anxiety or stress and things like that happening. So, like we talked about earlier with the neurotransmitters here's a few other ones: dopamine and norepinephrine. So dopamine is our happy hormone. Norepinephrine is the one that we utilize most when we rest and digest. These are more often released after eating a meal rich in protein, where serotonin, the one that wakes us up in the morning, is released after eating carbohydrates. Things like cayenne, cinnamon, ginger, I oftentimes ask my patients to utilize these more in their foods, specifically during the cold winter months, because these are all warming herbs. They're going to be more warm and easier on our digestion. They're going to keep our organs warm. They're going to make us feel warmer on the inside. And all of this leads to just a lifted mood, improved mood there. Some teas I often prescribe or use a lot of myself, a lemon balm. Lemon is a really summer type scent. We talk about it in Aroma Therapy too. Lemon is very brightening and uplifting. So it's a very kind of a happy tea to drink. It makes you just feel happier. Chamomile is a very calming herb. I'm sure you've all had a cup of chamomile tea in your life to help you calm down. Same with holy basil. It's a more of an adaptogen herb, helps us to adapt to stress or lower our cortisol. So it helps calm us down as well. Green tea is rich in L-theanine, and L-theanine is a common treatment for anxiety or for high stress levels or high cortisol levels as well. So that's another great tea to start implementing into your everyday routine as well. These are foods or what to eat to help maintain a good microbiota in the gut. So like we talked about, warm foods, soups, bone broths, oats, tea. We want some less animal-based protein at a minimum, more plant-based proteins, nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, lentils, tofu. Those are all great protein, plant-based protein sources. Healthy fats like olive oil, avocados. If you love guacamole as much as my family does, we eat lots of that. Higher fiber diet, so dark leafy greens. Make sure you're steaming your vegetables in the winter months. We don't want to be eating as many cold foods that are harder on our digestive system. So just give your vegetables a good steam before you eat them. Some fruits, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains. These are all really high fiber options. Fermented foods are those probiotic type foods: kefir, kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, tempeh, yogurt, and then prebiotic rich foods. Prebiotics feed probiotics, so probiotics love prebiotics. Barley, oats, soybean, garlic, leeks, kombucha, kefir. So just some food options for you to include to give a little spice to your life there. And then we'll go into skincare here. So whenever someone comes to me and they have anxiety and they have gut concerns and they have skin problems like anxiety or acne, eczema, rosacea, maybe they're getting a lot of rashes, or the winter months is a common time where we see shingles outbreaks or herpes infections come back into play. And I'd always look back at the skin-mind connection and the skin-gut connection as well. So whatever is happening on the skin is a direct reflection of what's happening in the gut and what's happening with our mental health. So we always want to take a look at all of those components to make sure they're in line, and see where we can make changes there to help our gut health and our mental health and our skincare as well. So if we notice any inflammation happening within the gut or that vagus nerve stimulation there, we might notice some inflammation happening out on our skin. The winter months are drying as well. So this is a lot of the time when we are increasing our moisturizing, our skincare product line. We're starting to put on those night creams again because we're noticing the heat is on in our house and we're getting dry and flaky all the time. So increasing moisturization during the winter months. And I always recommend during the winter, as well as for anxiety or for stress or winter blues or anything of that matter, like gua sha or facial cupping. You can get facial cupping sets or little gua sha things. They're great gift options over the holidays as well. And you can just put some nice oils on your face or moisturizer on your face. And a lot of these gua sha techniques or facial cupping sets are very meditative, but they're also going over common acupressure points. So yin tang is right in the middle of our forehead. GB26, I believe, is right here on the chin or right here. I don't remember. And then amian is behind the ear. So yin tang is a really relaxing point, where amian is one behind the ear. That's really good for its sedative effects, so putting us to sleep. And GB26 is very similar to yin tang, very relaxing. So those are just some skincare techniques as well. And then aromatherapy. Scents are known to lift mood, regulate emotion, improve sleep. They're often, when you smell something, you go back down memory lane. So they are very therapeutic as well. I use a lot of essential oils at home, and I know a lot of practice places, sometimes you might notice they have essential oils running, or if you go to yoga class or something like that, they use a lot of essential oils there. And they make great gift sets too during your holiday season. So I've definitely given my mama aromatherapy set for Christmas last year. But sandalwood is a great essential oil to use. You've probably, if you go to yoga, you've definitely been exposed to it before. It's used in many meditative or religious practices. Lavender, I'm sure you've all have seen it before. It has very calming anti-inflammatory effects. It's also used as a natural sleep aid. Some people like to sprinkle it on their pillow before they go to bed at night, or use it in their face creams or in their hair products and things like that, so that they get that calming effect there. Lemon oil, like we talked about earlier, it's just a very mood lifting, brightening, energy increasing scent. So we use it often for those effects. Jasmine has been known to inspire positive emotions. So they use it a lot in beauty products like your moisturizers and your hair care and things like that. You'll probably notice jasmine's been added. And peppermint is a great one that I love to use. Peppermint halo on my head for sage whenever I have a headache. But it is great at improving exercise performance, or mostly for concentration or focus or clearing your mind. So great options to kind of help you brighten your mood and energize yourself during the winter months and during those seasonal blues.